Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Barn of Splanification. I'm Tyler, your host, and today we're kind of hitting on a subject that should be pretty near and dear to most of those in the country. We're getting ready for a real winter snowstorm coming. There's supposed to be quite a bit of very cold air and a lot of snow to a lot of areas. So I would like to address how do you stay warm? How do you deal with winter storms? And hopefully this will help. You don't have much time to prepare. It's getting ready to dump on us any moment. And I remember back in the late 70s, Terry and I were recently married, and we moved to actually we moved to move in with her mother, who was widowed at the time, and we moved in so that we could use our rent money to finish off her basement into a rentable apartment, and she could get some more income through that. And we used what we were paying for rent. We just rolled that into expenses, and we ended up purchasing all of that material and making that apartment very usable. It worked out well. But when we were there, this was near Washington, D.C., and we had 23 inches of snow that fell in 2 hours. We had a huge snowstorm. It paralyzed Washington, D.C. It kept roads plugged, and they just did not know how to deal with that much snow that fast. And we were isolated for 4 days, and we were in a suburban area. So we weren't in a backwoods somewhere. We had no access. We couldn't get out. Our vehicles were buried in snow. We had her mom's car, her son's car, our car, and her son's school truck that he was driving. All four vehicles were parked next to each other, and there was one mound of snow. And the only indication you had that there were any vehicles under that mound of snow was one of their aerials stuck up out of the snow. That was it. Had to shovel all that out because with that much snow, of course, the wind, it drifted, and the drifts were pretty sizable. How do you deal with that? We're coming into a situation, we might just see that same thing in some of your areas. I'm all the way down here in the Gulf Coast of Texas, so it's not likely we'll see even a single snowflake, much less a frost. But those north of here could be in for quite a battle. The biggest problem in winter storms, or any storm really, is isolation. Isolation is a great seedbed for bad ideas. So keep a radio so that you'll know, a battery-operated radio so that you'll know what's going on. Keep your cell phones charged up. It would be a good idea to get these USB battery extender things so that you can charge your phone from them. You're not going to have any transportation if you get isolated with this snowstorm. When something that Terry and I did during that snowstorm in the 70s is we took a sled. We had a little toboggan sled, and we took a walk. We hiked out and went to a local grocery store that it was up on the main highway, so that they opened first. And after a couple of days, we were able to get out and go there, and we were able to buy some things and come back. Not that we really had to, but it was something to do, and we were bored out of our minds. So we did the hiked over there, got some groceries, came back with them, and yeah, it made everybody feel a whole lot better. But transportation will be short, and it's too late to go out and fill up your gas tanks because the fuel you got to drive out to get it. So isolation is a big problem. You got to plan ahead for that. With these big winter storms, sadly, in the state that we're in the condition that this country is in, you can pretty well expect Any demand like that is going to overload the electric grid, and we're going to see power failures. It used to be that power would be kept up no matter what in those winter storm areas because people die without electricity, and it's not happening. You can pretty well bank on it. If you're in an area that gets hit with really cold weather, you're going to lose power. Not just because a tree went down over a power line, that kind of stuff happens, but what's going to happen is that so many people are going to be turning on electric heaters that they will overload the system and it will collapse. And when the grid collapses, that's something that doesn't come back real soon. They tried when our area was affected by a winter freeze that is very unusual down here. That very thing happened, and their answer to mitigate that was to have roving blackouts, that they would shut down power to a small area, and then that would help the other areas stay up, and they would only keep it down for a few hours and then bring it back up so they could get their furnaces going and heat up again, and then they would black out another area. And the plan was, if you kept that moving around, that you could statistically save power. The problem was, once an area went down, you saved what power they were using to stay warm, but when the power tried to come back up again, every heater, every electrical appliance, you name it, whatever it is, they had it on because they wanted to be able to get heat as soon as the power came back on, and the power couldn't handle that surge. And so we ended up losing power for 4 days that was only supposed to be a couple of hours. So a 2-hour intended rolling blackout suddenly grew to 4 days, and it was a big debacle here in South Texas. All, grant you minded that it was all at the result of the vilification of gas and coal and all of these rapid response power generation facilities that weren't used all that often, but they were always there in the standby so that if we had a sudden demand for a lot of power, these power plants could come up very quickly and supply power to rescue the grid. Well, we were sitting here with wind power and solar power that both were failing under that storm and under that cold, and the demand was so high they could not keep up, and we did not have any rapid response plants. Real smooth thinking on the part of our government to say we've got to switch everything to solar and wind power at the expense of being able to respond to these kind of things. It was a total debacle. And this is the country we're in, folks. Things have changed. We're not the same as we used to be. And you can expect power outages. So you need a generator if you can get one. You should have one already if you're in those kind of areas. But if you're in an apartment, you can't have a generator going. Although some people have a balcony and they've run generators on their balcony. That's an option. We need batteries. You need lots of batteries. And you ought to be having rechargeable batteries, because then when the power does come back on, you can recharge them. And because batteries are very expensive, to have that many batteries around and then just have to throw them away when you're done. We've converted almost everything to rechargeable batteries, and it works real well. Oil lamps. If you're in cold areas, oil lamps, you got to be careful with the fire, but oil lamps will provide both heat and light, and they will make a difference. LED lights are very safe. They don't emit heat, but they will provide light for a long time. The LED lights that I have are they're USB rechargeable, and they not only can be recharged, but they can also act as a USB source to recharge my phone or recharge something that runs on USB power. So a USB light that can charge or be a charger is a really good dual purpose thing. Mine will run 5.5 hours on low. It'll give me 5.5 hours of continual light on its low setting, and its low setting will light an entire room. Wood stoves. Wood stoves are a great thing if you can have them, and if you have a supply of wood. And there are places in the Midwest where you just don't have wood supplies, so they have pellet stoves, and they can use pellets. And if you're in an area that wood pellets are expensive, they are very easily converted to burn dent corn. And some farmers have found, they can find sources of dent corn, which is the feed corn, and you can buy that many times cheaper than you can get pellets. So that's always an option. Portable heaters, typically propane heaters, they work pretty well. And there's a lot of concern about carbon monoxide and things of that sort. But propane heaters don't emit that much carbon monoxide. As long as the flame is blue and doesn't turn to yellow, then you're not getting carbon as a carbonizing flame. And think about it. If you have a gas stove, you don't have to vent the gas stove. You can heat your house practically with a gas stove. You've got between the oven door being open and the burners being on, you can run that stove wide open for a couple hours and heat your house up. It'll work pretty well, and you don't have a carbon monoxide problem with that. So these portable heaters, as long as they're a propane heater, you don't have a big you don't have a carbon monoxide issue. If they are a kerosene or one of the ones that use another fuel, you have to have them vented. You need to ventilate the area. If your gas stove is electric ignited, like ours is, make sure that you can light the stove with a butane lighter or a match. That's very important. Some electric ignition stoves won't open the gas valve if there's no electricity to the stove. So make sure that you can manually light your stove if you lose electricity. Make sure you have some lighters, some butane lighters. I like the ones that are kind of long, a long match. That works real well too and helps for lighting candles and lamps and everything else. Cook some meals ahead of time. You have to understand that if we lose power, you're going to be hard pressed to cook unless you've got a wood stove. So you might want to make ahead some meals that, you may not like it cold, but it's better than going hungry. And you want to have some high carb meals like mac and cheese, or make some casseroles that you can put ahead, and that if things came push to shove, you can fill your belly with something that's a cold meal. It'd be better than no meal. And keep the carbs up, because carbs produce a lot of warmth. And that gets us to the next thing of keeping warm. How do you keep warm in a winter storm? Because if you lose power and you don't have a wood stove, your house is going to get pretty chilly. This is where having a generator to run your furnace helps. If you've got electric heat, though, that generator would have to be really huge. I tell you, the most important item of clothing you can have for keeping warm is a stocking hat, just like this one. A stocking hat. There's a backpacker's rule that says if your feet are cold, put on your hat. And it's so true. A stocking hat like this will conserve so much heat in your body that it's just amazing what it'll do. And the two things that will keep you warm is fuel in the fire, fire in your furnace, meaning eating food that your body produces heat by that. And the second is don't let that heat escape. And putting a hat on helps your whole body to be warmer. And a stocking hat like that is probably the most important single piece of clothing you can have. After that, wear some warm slippers because your floor is going to get cold, and you need to insulate that floor or your feet from that floor. So you want to stay warm that way. And then you want to wear layers of clothing. You want to wear loose layers, not restricting. You don't want to restrict blood flow, but you want several loose layers. And you want, if you're getting warm, you take off some of those layers because you do not want to be perspiring, because that perspiration will conduct heat right out of your body. Stay hydrated. Drink plenty of fluids. Hot chocolate's a good choice. Make sure to put some marshmallows in there. And a lot of carbs. Throw away the keto. Not during a winter storm. You need lots of carbs because carbs will heat you up. Double up under the covers. There's an old saying that one Eskimo in one igloo is cold, but two Eskimos in one igloo is warm. Terry and I went on a camping trip once, and it got frightfully cold. But we had our two sleeping bags zipped together, and we stayed warm as a bug. In the morning, I went to the community, facility there that had hot water and sinks and showers and toilets and all of that, because we were camping in a tent. And most of the people there were camping in their campers. And they were all talking in there about how cold it was that night. And man, they nearly froze. And then somebody commented that, yeah, I wonder how those two in that in that tent did. We were the only tent in the whole area. And they said, I bet they're froze solid. And I piped up at that point and I said, no, we were warm. I'm the one Terry and I my wife and I were in that tent. And I said, we were warm as can be. I said, but we zipped our bags together, and they were really good, warm sleeping bags. And we were fine. But there is a rock and roll group, and I'm sure you've heard the name, Three Dog Night. And where they got their name was an Aleut Eskimo term for how cold things got. And the Eskimos, when they get cold, they will bring one of their sled dogs in to sleep with them. And they're like a hot water bottle with fur. And they said if it's a one dog night, well, that's kind of normal. And if it's a two dog night, well, that's getting cold. But if it's a really severe, just blindingly cold night, they called that a 3-dog night. You had to bring 3 dogs just to stay warm. Well, you know what? Same thing works with keeping warm. And if you got a great big king-size bed, you can probably get husband, wife, and several of the kids in there. and you all will stay warm. We have a little Chiweenie. He's not very big. He's not but about maybe 10 pounds. But you know what? He puts off a lot of heat. And so, you know what? Bring your dogs in. They're cold too. And bring them into the house. And they will be glad to warm your bed up for you and sleep with you. And, give them a bath before the snowstorm starts. Get rid of the fleas and the dog smell. And you've got a nice furry hot water bottle to keep you warm. After it all, you need a place of refuge. You need to be able to call some people. If you have family or friends in the area, maybe if you live in an apartment and they're pretty well situated where they live, and maybe they have a wood stove, call them and say, look, if we lose power and my house turns really cold, could we work out a way that I could get over there? Hopefully it's not far to travel because the roads might be all blocked. So, know your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. You need the phone numbers of good neighbors that are close by. And it's important It's important to know, and it's important to check on your neighbors to make sure they're okay. Maybe you're one that has a wood stove and lots of food and extra everything. Find out who your neighbors are. If you've got a neighbor who's not really well prepared for this thing, invite them over. It'd be a great way to get to know a neighbor and make a good friend. We're in this together, folks. And God never made us to be isolated and not helping one another. And I hope these tips and things help you through. I certainly hope you all do well. I hope I've splanified things well for you. And share this. Share this video with any of your friends. And, let them know that here's some tips and things that I hope might help. God bless you. Stay safe. Catch you later.